Hello again and welcome back to another Purpose Interaction chat. I'm joined by my friend Gitanjali and we're going to talk about purpose. Hello Gita, how are you?
Hello, I'm feeling very purposeful, Adrian. How are you?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good. We're in the right place. I'm also very purposeful. It's my birthday today, so I'm feeling very dandy, actually.
Living your purpose on your birthday.
Living my purpose on my birthday? I like to think so. Now, Gita, you and I have known each other a long time. Tell me or share with us how you would describe your purpose.
Yeah, I was thinking back to when we first met, actually, many, many moons ago in New York, doing a piece of work for a global insurance company out there. And I'm not sure I knew then really what my purpose was in such a nutshell, in such a succinct way. As I started to work more, obviously, with Unilever and looking at empowering people to discover their purpose, I started to reflect on actually, I know what mine is now. There was a gap where I didn't. And then I remembered that there was a time when I knew what it was in what I call the first version of myself. I'm on version number 3. You know, who knows how many versions there are. This is version number 3. It took me back to this piece of work we did at drama school. And, we were probably sitting in a unitard at the time because that's what you did at drama school, get your unitard on and figure out what your purpose is. But actually, it was a profound exercise. And I came across it when I was packing up. We moved house last year. And I came across all of these papers that we'd done at drama school. Remember when you used to handwrite stuff and actually have to put assignments in? We can relate. You young'uns are watching it. You don't know what that is. But we had to answer the question of why we wanted to be an actor. And what I wrote down was that I wanted to be a vessel that people could safely sail upon to explore foreign lands.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward, insert X number of years here that doesn't date me too badly, to thinking about what my purpose is now in this third version of my life. And the connections were really, really clear because the purpose now for me, and thereby the purpose for my business, is to awaken the possibilist in you.
I remember doing my workshop a year or so ago, the same purpose workshop that you guys deliver, and realizing that very similar, both facilitators, both used to standing up in front of a group of people and introducing ourselves. Of course I know who I am. Of course I know who my values are and what my values are and what my beliefs are and what I stand for. But having that succinct purpose statement, if you'd asked me what my purpose was, I think I would have fallen on my face. I wouldn't have known what you even meant, let alone have a statement for it. And I think there is that realization. And the wonderful thing about the realization is to know that you can connect to it. So it's not that you've had a road to Damascus moment. The sun has suddenly shone on you and you're like, oh my God, this is the complete cathartic realization. And the cherubs are singing.
It can be.
I think for some people it can be. And that's not, so maybe I'm not doing a great job of explaining it. I think it's almost, for me, it was a sense of relief. It's like, I've always known that I've wanted to bring people together, that I like doing practical things, that I like to help people, that I actually like to facilitate. I've known all that, but being able to come up with some words was really amazing, cathartic. And I do, it's quite interesting. I wonder if that is something that, as facilitators, as trainers, as learning professionals, we're so used to helping other people as it cobblers shoes, and actually we don't think about these things very deeply at all. And I think that's an interesting point. What was your purpose journey to that point where you are now, where you seem very comfortable and driven?
Yeah, I mean, the loss of identity in the middle was really interesting. I'm not even sure I'd describe it that way, but it was definitely not prescient. It wasn't something that I was thinking about. And then, funnily enough, and I look at this so much in my work with clients as well and organizations when I'm consulting, is I worked actually in one of my last roles at Credit Suisse. It was head of reward and recognition, looking at employee engagement. Part of that was purpose, and the CEO's purpose at the time was to help our clients thrive. So actually it was a part of my lexicon. It was a part of my world. What was missing was the individual purpose. what was missing was that reflection on what is my purpose within this bigger organizational purpose. The idea of awakening a possibilist really came from, well, as you know, there's a lot of different points along the journey, but when I consider a couple of really important ones, one was on a very personal note. The word awaken is really, really important. A lot of people, like 99% of people, are asleep. Right, they are working from what we call a place of insecure thinking and ego and identity, and they're asleep and they're navigating their world that way, and they will navigate their world that way until the day they die. What I want to do, and what I want my coaches to do, and thereby high definition you do in the world, is to awaken people, not to optimism or avoid realism or pessimism, but to actually see what the possibilities are. And that was, as is, the purpose of anyone, a very personal journey, because what I had realized is that I was being described as an optimist. Literally, people in supermarkets would say, "Oh, you're smiling. What are you so happy about today?" And then sometimes I didn't feel like an optimist. Sometimes I didn't feel positive, right? So actually, how do we uncover the possibility? This idea of awakening, not just from that, awakening people who are asleep to what the possibilities are, but actually on a more, I was going to say tragic, but it's not tragic because it happened, is a very, very close friend of mine took her own life a few years ago. And that was, as it is for most people, I think, very confronting and very unexpected. And what I remember saying at the time was, because we all came together and we had a wake for her, and I was just like, if she could be here to hear who she was to us in the world. And then I wanted to, I'm like, why do we wait to have a wake? Like, what if people could hear that throughout their lives? So this idea of awakening and waking, no one needs to hear that from anybody else. They don't need to rely on hearing that from someone else. So the waking up is the realization that, and I forget in the many, many articles I've read on purpose, this was one person's purpose, to wake people up so that they realize they're already home.
You've always been curious. Have you always wanted to be that vessel to shake things? What were you like as a child? Was that a feature of your development?
Well, I'm one of 9, so you had to kind of speak loud. So there was always that element to be heard. But I've always had an insatiable curiosity for human nature, which is what really, not that I was conscious of it at the time as an actor, is really what was such a driving force for me. And I remember sitting on the bus next to a complete stranger, and I can still see myself. I was probably about 7, and I sat next to it was a really full bus, so we were, scattered around. I sat next to this adult, and I remember looking up at her and thinking, who are you? Where are you going? Like, which stop are you going to get off at? I wonder what's going. I wanted to know what her experience was. Like, are you sad? I was trying to figure out what her face was reflecting. Like, what was she feeling? Where was she going? Was she sad? Did she have a family? Was she hoping to see them? So that kind of curiosity, just about the innate nature of humanity and the human experience, has always been there. Yeah, I remember doing a leadership session many, many years ago with an asset management company with their managing partners, and we spent a disproportionate amount of time discussing the difference between mission and vision. And when I think about it now, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, the idea is there's multiple dimensions at play, but once we can ascertain the organizational purpose, once we can then empower people to realize their own individual purpose, which is, for me, as I said before, that's the difference. We weren't looking at that. And in fact, the word purpose wasn't part of the lexicon 10 years ago, or even 12 years ago when I was in that role. It was more about it was a lot about engagement, like how do we get people behind this?
Mm-hmm.
And to your question, which you often get asked, is how do we get people engaged in this so that they can be more productive, right? Which for me is the wrong question. For me, the question is, why is purpose even important to us in the first place? And by us, I mean either the CEO or whoever the leadership team is. It should be the CEO, because otherwise the danger of this work is that it sits in a bucket that is labeled HR.
Mm.
And then that for me is very, very different. And when I think about some of the clients I work with who are in the business, that are responsible for people strategy. So one of the partners at a consulting firm that I work closely with, her role is not HR, but she has a remit around people strategy. So there's a curiosity about it that isn't being dictated as a part of a formula to get to more productive employees. Now, the through line is clear and the research is there, which is incredible for the very, what I call blue brains, technical brains who want the statistics. The through line is there. When people understand their purpose, they're engaged, right? And when there's engagement, there's higher productivity. It's called discretionary effort. They will put in the discretionary effort. They will work that extra time without asking for a bonus or something in return. And when there's discretionary effort, the output and the productivity is higher as a result. Thereby, profit is generally higher. Thereby, shareholders are generally happier, CEOs are happier, and it's a virtuous circle that comes back to happy employee. Right? Now, that's a whole other conversation around happiness versus engagement versus
There is. That's going to be interview number 2.
Exactly.
The world of happiness.
That Adrian and I are going to be doing together.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to do. You can tell a new series. We're going to chat once a month.
Yeah.
I think there's also some assumptions in what you said, that once those people have been given, they've been empowered to understand and embark on their personal purpose journey, that they will connect with an organization's purpose. And that's to the point at which, actually, when I'm asked, well, do people leave, when they've got their purpose? And my question is, well, how authentic are you with your purpose as an organization? Because if you're not, and you're actually giving individuals that choice, Gita, then they'll say, well, actually, no, I want to be purposeful, and I don't feel like I can be purposeful here. And so that top-down cascade, there's almost a meeting in the middle that needs to happen for it to be successful. There has to be the will at a senior level to say, okay, well, we need to be congruent, we need to be consistent and authentic and live this. And then we need to empower people, and we need to encourage them, but ultimately hope that they will lean up, that they will reach up and connect. And I think that's incredibly inspiring when you see that happen. And I think your story of being on the bus and looking at this big person wanting to know that their story is the best illustration that, Unilever have got 150,000 employees globally. They're all individuals. They're all a different person on that bus. And so to be able to say we have one strategy that will inspire everyone to reach up, it couldn't be more arrogant or ignorant. Actually give you the opportunity to understand your purpose. And then actually the interview with Anne Kabinga talking about, celebrating people's individuality is really important. And I just wanted to reflect one other thing that you said as well about awakening, which I think is an incredible part of your purpose. And, having worked with you as well professionally, to see your curiosity, you're an easy person to misunderstand because you're very open and loud and you're a powerful woman. But fundamentally, you're incredibly curious and you're poking because you want to see what happens. And a couple of interviews with Maud and Edward where they talked about, in Holland there was a piece of research that said 70% of people, maybe even 80% of people, are unhappy in their jobs. They're unhappy in their jobs, but they don't understand what it is that they should be doing otherwise, whether it's happiness or purpose. Well, let's talk about you and high definition, and how do you live your purpose?
Well, there's 2 things at play always for me. It's intrinsically, so how am I living it internally for myself? And then there's the extrinsic, right? There's what's going on externally, right? This pithy one-liner of the purpose, to put a dent in the universe, or, to live and deliver wow, which is Zappos. They're very pithy, and Zappos, by the way, just phenomenal work that they do. but how do we start to put it into a place where it's seen and lived outside of just the individual, right? Whether it's me as CEO, whether it's me as executive coach, whether it's someone on my team, there's the individual intrinsic experience of it that can be very tangible, as I gave that example. And then there's the external environmental aspect of it to say, well, what does that mean in terms of, and Zappos are a good example. We have yet to do this, but maybe we will at some point in the future. Is to your point around, will people leave when they discover their purpose? They are so, like, the external, this is who we are, is so obvious that part of their recruitment process is that they offer people, I think it's after 1 week. I was listening to their maestro of culture recently. He gave an excellent talk on their culture. After a week of their induction, that they offer people after a week a month's salary, I think it's a month's salary, to leave. Like, if it's not for you, if it doesn't fit with what you're looking for and what your purpose is and what you want in the world and how you see yourself showing up at work, here's a month's salary, because you might have given up another role, you might have moved to Vegas for this. Like, thank you. It can become that tangible.
Curious and afraid. The curiosity comes out really well. Why afraid?
Because I lived decades of my life being afraid of not being good enough, afraid of not looking a certain way, afraid of not being successful, afraid of failure, afraid of other people's opinions of me. So much fear. And actually, in my experience and also in my research of human behavior, of what it is to be in this human experience, is fundamentally, for me, it comes down to one of two things at any given point. Whether it's a decision you're making or a way that you're communicating, you're doing it from one of two places, and that is either fear or love.
Mm-hmm.
So I know definitively when I'm coming from a place of fear. And I can still feel it in myself, and I can see it in clients, and that's our role, right? To be the catalyst to awaken the possibilist in them so that they understand that. Because what I also know to be true is that a life lived in fear is not always conscious of the fear.
Why would you want to be more curious and afraid if fear is something that needs to be, do you want to be more aware of it?
Yeah, I just want to switch between if I feel, let's say, for example, your heart starts racing and you're starting to feel afraid, nervous, your sympathetic nervous system's been activated in your brain, your palms are a bit sweaty, your heart's racing, tummy's wobbling, you're possibly shaking, and you can feel it, right? Something is important to you in that moment. So the brain has done what the brain is designed to do. It's gone into its arousal system, or, high alertness, if arousal is too controversial a word to use. So it's really focused on the thing. So now I'm in this situation, whether, if I think about it for myself, it's a big meeting, or if I think about it for clients, or you're up for a promotion, or you're having a conversation with a client that's not going well. So I'm now in this system. So how do I bring into that moment? How do I LYP? How do I live my purpose, living your purpose in that moment? For me, this is how it starts to be these, big ticket items where we talk about a North Star is, I can ask myself, okay, how can I be more curious than afraid? And I take a breath in and I wait, because I don't know the answer to that. But I know as long as I stay in that state of fear, that absolutely what I call the BPO, my best possible outcome is getting further and further and further away from me.
Mm-hmm. I think there's definitely something about feeling alive. I can't remember the last time I did a keynote, but it's been at least 2 years. But always reminding myself to be afraid, to be conscious. Maybe afraid is the wrong word, but to be nervous, because when you stop being nervous, then you're on autopilot. And if you're on autopilot, you're not living that moment. And so that's what I read here about being curious and afraid. It's about being curious and setting aside that comfort zone of, I know what's happening here, and actually I don't know what's going to happen next. And I think that's super interesting and inspiring. It took me a year to get Unilever to approve my 10 million in 3 years. $1 billion is a terrific objective. If anyone can do it, I'm confident that you can. So tell me, give me some flavors around what it is that you're doing to reach 1 billion people.
Well, firstly, my team have this whole, algorithm behind it of, if you know 250 people or you have 250 people under you in an organization, etc., like, can we safely say a percentage of them will be awakened as a result of your awakening, right? So highly scientific. But the more...
So we just write that down.
Exactly, like
1 to 250.
The if-then formula. But there is that part of it, is knowing, and a peer of mine said to me recently, he's like, it is very much like, won't happen in my lifetime. I can't do it on my own. And also I don't know how I'm going to do it. So kind of as a definition, 3 definitions of what makes a quest in your life. So with that in mind, what does it actually mean and how are we achieving it? Is there are tangibles. There's the social enterprise and the charity and the philanthropy and the social impact piece of it. Like, who are we working with? Whether it's, clients in that sector or gifting coaching programs and training programs to people in that sector who then have a pretty phenomenal ripple effect. Or is it, who are we working with, from a corporate perspective? Again, to the, like, how many people are sitting under them, etc. But resting in the, and this is the being more curious than afraid, like, oh God, what if I don't make it? Now I'm back into fear of, like, oh, I've set this big number and now it's out there on a podcast and someone's going to say you didn't reach 1 billion. It's like, how can I be more curious about that? And I can't answer that. I can't answer it. And I adore that feeling, which I never thought I couldn't conceptualize what that would be like, to live in the unknown. But that's actually what we're all doing all of the time. So when I think, how am I going to get to the 1 billion? I don't know. And that's good. Then truly...
One of the first things I remember meeting you was, I'm pretty sure it was you, was every time I said I can't do something, I don't know how to do that, you would say, you would add at the end, yet.
Yeah.
You'd add this word, yet. And then I think you got your kids doing it. Yeah, it is.
Yeti. That's still there.
Can't do it yet.
For my kids. I mean, that's the growth mindset, right?
It's the growth mindset, but it's 100% you. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I think you're doing an amazing job. I feel very blessed to be able to spend time with you today. And I wish you a happy Tuesday.
Thank you. So wonderful to spend time with you. I hope you have a wondrous day where you're more curious than afraid.